Okay. Cat Club Director's Commentary, Episode 4. So now we are talking about Episode 4. And I'm actually recording this the same day that I recorded the last Director's Commentary, so I'm a little tired, but I'll do this one real quick because it's only 13 pages, and that's like the shortest episode in the entire series. So first of all, we have this cover page, which is the first time that I've drawn like Yasai City, the city itself. Um, and well, you can see at which point I stopped like trying to draw the city, and I just kind of did squiggles. Um, I don't know. Let's say this is the beach over here. This is the beach. It's the beachside city. They live near the beach, yeah. And instead of doing lines, because I didn't want to do that, I just made my brush really thick, and I lowered the opacity, and I drew squares and rectangles, and I put some white over it to show that the city has lights, and I did a sun. There's a sunset because at this point in the story the sun is setting. And this is at the point where like I actually paid attention to stuff like what time of day is it. Um so I think this is meant to be like the same day that Rin got beat up by Oritsu. It's just later after she woke up. And this is after school, so the sun's going down, and now the sun is like really setting, I guess. And it's basically nighttime, or it's getting there. It's nighttime by the time this episode is over. So yeah, and I'm a little impressed with how I did this. Like, it looks pretty. This whole drawing is nice. I like it, especially when it's small. When you blow it up to like full screen, um, or like you really zoom in on it, it doesn't look quite as good. But I guess that's what gives it this sort of painting feel, even though it's not really a painting, but it's kind of like a painting. So I'll say it's a painting. Um, First page, it's bad. I don't like it. I can't think of anything nice to say. I don't like it. Um, the background, it curves up for, well, just because I wanted it to. It was meant to show perspective. Um, my exaggerated perspective from the last episode. I think if I was going to do this now, like the perspective would be about the same. The anatomy would be a lot better for sure. But I think I would have this curve like more this way rather than like this, because this just feels weird. It doesn't really make sense. It's kind of impossible. Um, I don't know. I like how I drew the lips, kind of. I liked how I drew the lips when I drew them. That's for sure. Because I kept drawing them that way. So here, we got them walking. I think this is probably the second best drawing from this episode. And here they're walking back through the neighborhood that they were walking through in episode 3. You can see from the cables hanging above them, but now it's a lot darker because it's nighttime. And I don't know, I kind of like this because this is it's a really big drawing of these two characters, and I think at this point I haven't done a big drawing of either of them yet. And this is like a full body shot. It's nice and big. The shading was pretty detailed. I like what I did with Rin's face and nose. It looks nice. Choka's face also looks nice. They don't look like horrific monsters here. This leg isn't right. I remember in my sketch it looked normal, but when I did the line art it just didn't. So I don't really know what I did here to make it look like this, but I did something. I sure did something. I think other than this leg and how thin their arms are, this page is fine. I think at this point, though, I wasn't very good at drawing women's chests. I'm a lot better at that now, though. Whatever. Anyway, this page. Oh, lovely, lovely page. How good you look. I think this is probably the worst page I've drawn. Not just in this episode, but in the entire series. I think this might be it. I don't know. I might have others where I'm particularly upset about how it looks, but this one I'm the most upset with because, again, I really wanted to draw more realistic looking people, but I was still in the mindset of drawing more stylized characters, and I was very at this point I was very married to the art style that I had set up in the first episode. So there are a lot of growing pains here. It wants to move on, but like I want to move on, but it's also like too similar to how it was when it started out. So it's like it's a very rough transitional period for Cat Club. Yeah, I don't know. It's rough. It's rough and it gets better. So that's good. It's very good that it doesn't stay like this. And you see in the very next page, it gets all stylized because this is meant to be a lighter page. So Rin's like asking about the other what? Because, like in the last episode, Shoko mentioned the other beasts, the things that they're supposedly fighting. And so Choco says, yeah, we fight the other beasts, just like the cat that bit us. There are many other beasts, all different types and different species. Right? And that is interesting, right? Like that's interesting, like there's the cat that gave them the powers that they have, and there are other animals that give people other powers too. So, maybe eventually we'll meet some of those. That's a mystery for another time, but not really, because in the very next page, well, not the very next page, Choco says, though it's not the animals themselves that give us trouble. And Rin says, you mean the people they bite, don't you? Or you're saying there are others with powers like ours, just derived from different animals. Words, reading fast, talking fast. Anyway, yeah, so Rin asks that to Choco, and her very next question is, how many Derivada users are there? And Choco doesn't know the answer, so she just kind of goes like, a lot, probably. Then she says, we don't really know, but there are two people we strongly suspect based on their reputation and their power over this city. And this kind of implies a lot. Like, okay, her knowing about Rat Park, this makes sense, right? Like, he's a dangerous crime lord who specializes in selling drugs. They call him Rat Park. I've had a run-in or two with his goons. So, like, that explains how they know about this guy, right? It doesn't explain why they think he might be a Derivada user. Just his abnormal ability to hold power over the city, I guess. You know, like, probably more so than a normal crime lord. That's what you're led to believe, at least. So there's that. That makes sense. Then there's this other one. The other is this freaky hacker whose name seems to keep popping up everywhere. He calls himself Big Brother. Now, okay, one thing that's a small detail. So Rat Park, he didn't give himself his name. That's what they call him. That's what people in the streets call him. That's what he's known as. He's known as Rat Park. He didn't give himself that name. But, you know, Big Brother, he gave himself that name. That's what he calls himself. And, I mean, there's no real importance to that. I just thought that's a cool detail. It's a slight difference between these two massive criminals who hold a lot of power, right? And again, no explanation for why they think he might have a derivare. It kind of makes sense how they know who he is. Like, they know this person. Because, I mean, they don't know who he is, but they know the name Big Brother because he keeps showing up. Like, he does things. He's somewhat active, right? And, so, you know, this does make sense. My only real issue with this, now that I'm revisiting it, or whenever I do revisit it, is that, you know, one, like, why do they think that these people specifically are Derivada users? And, you know, I mean, like, it makes sense that they'd be on the club's radar, right? Because these are big criminals who put their city in danger. But I also don't really like that they are introduced this way. Like, I would much rather have had Rin herself bump into Rat Park's gang, or have her encounter whatever the hell Big Brother is doing on the internet, right? And then have them sort of be introduced as they're relevant. But here we just get a page talking about them. And, you know, there's like, I mean, they are dedicated, like they have a whole page dedicated to them. They each have their own panel that takes up half the page. And I'm just going to tell you right now, they're not relevant for a long time. At least a long time in real life. If you're reading episode by episode after everything's out, then it's not going to be that weird, but, you know, these guys aren't immediately relevant, so it feels kind of weird that they're being talked about. Not that you'd get that from this episode, but, you know, revisiting it after reading up to like episode 16 or something, this is a little confusing, which is another reason why I kind of wish that this arc happened later. But at the same time, it establishes a lot of other very important information that couldn't have happened later. So, yeah. And a big reason for me wanting to introduce this information early on was just because, well, I really wanted to get into what I thought was going to make Cat Club cool, right? Like there was a lot of cool stuff that I wanted to talk about, that I wanted to do, and I felt like the only way to show how cool my story was would be to just do that, like from the start. And there isn't necessarily anything wrong with that. It's just really, it complicates things. Anyway, the art style on this page looks kind of cool, and the art here looks nice as well. These sort of abstract drawings of real people that are meant to explain or sort of show what their vibe is or what their deal is. You know, these are the mental images you're meant to have of these characters without knowing their identities. And Rin asks how she knows about these criminals, and she kind of already explained that, but like, whatever. And Choco says it's for the same reason that I was nervous to tell you any of this. It's because we chose to give up living a normal youth to protect this city. We want to make it a better place to live for all the cats and people in it using our powers, no matter the cost. And it's that no matter the cost part that's really important here. But these lines and this drawing of the city from below, sort of to contrast this drawing of the city from above. It and this drawing of a cat, not just a cat, but it's the cat, as you can see from the little wisps of fire. You know, this is kind of meant to show like a sense of duty, like they feel very strongly about this city. They love it, and they also love the people in it. And for better or worse, they're willing to sacrifice anything just to keep it safe because they have the power to. And Choco says, I should have told you what the club was all about when I first told you about it. It's seriously unreasonable and irresponsible for me to ask you to join us and do what we do. I didn't, typo, tell you sooner because Theravada users attack each other often, and many of the ones we've met have been criminals. I wasn't sure how to explain it to you. It's not exactly something you very easily bring up in a normal conversation. Not even sure I fully understand it myself. And like at this point, I mean, okay, there's like a pretty rough start to this episode, and this page in particular kind of upsets me, but well, especially this one. A lot of pages from this episode upset me, but like going from that to Choco's explanation of what the club is and her apology for not telling Rin sooner and why she didn't want to. You know, it's like very understandable. Like, you know, this is like the first sort of emotional moment in the story. And, you know, Choco caps it off by saying, if you want to give up on the club just because of this, I'll understand. I promise we'll keep you safe no matter your choice. And like at this point there's no real reason for Rin to want to join the club. Well, I mean, there are reasons for her to want to join, but there's no reason for her to think that she has to. And I felt like that was really important, especially since early on I really like nailed in how lonely she was and how desperate she was to have friends. So I felt like to sort of like tell her point blank that you don't need to join this club, it's not necessary. um it doesn't really give her any conflict, but I think it gives more weight to her choice, right? um and she says, after a bit of a pause, and Choco's starting to walk away, she says, "Damn it. Why the hell are you so cool? I've never known anyone so nice in my entire life." And like, well, you get this drawing of her crying, and like, again, like, I think she kind of understands, like, that she doesn't need to join now. And, that's not entirely why she's crying, but I guess that's part of it. Like, she doesn't need to do this. Um, but she's also kind of inspired by Choco. Um, and that makes her want to join. So, and you have Choco blushing because, like, where the hell did that come from? Uh, but Rin says, "Of course I'll join you guys. This only makes me want to do it even more, knowing how selfless you are. I'd like nothing more than to join the club." And she's like, "Well, yeah." Also, I think Rin was drawn very well here. I did a good job. I like her hands. Same for this drawing of her crying. I think it's really good and I like it. Anyway, this drawing of Choco, not so much. And so Choco says, "It's really sweet, but we're still in public. You're gonna get people angry at us, because like it's nighttime and people are done with their day now, right? So like, I personally don't like it when I'm just in my house and it's like 9 or 10 in the afternoon and people are outside and they're screaming." That makes it sound like I live in a really bad neighborhood, but I don't. But people scream for some reason. It's not like scared screaming. I don't know why they're screaming, but they're screaming. I don't know. Anyway. And now we have Choco thinking to herself, "Geez, what'll I do with her?" And then she says, "There, I'll walk you home now." And she's like comforting her. And I thought that would be a cute moment to end that episode on. So, yeah, not really my favorite episode at all. It has, I think, where it works really well, and where it doesn't, it really doesn't. But I don't know. This is meant to be the episode that like sort of rewarded you for reading the first 3 episodes. Like the first 3 episodes were sort of meant to establish characters in this world that they live in or whatever, and it doesn't do that great of a job of it. But if you read through the first 3 episodes and you made it this far, then this would be your sort of reward, saying, "Thanks for reading this far. Here's your reward." And like, not only are you getting exposition, right, answers to what this world is and what the story is about, um, you also get an actual character moment, and it's good. It's pretty good. as rough as the start to it was, I think by the end it's a pretty touching episode, and um, it establishes Choco as more than a two-dimensional character, like, or I don't know, she's not one-dimensional. She's not just a peppy personality. She has like deeper, more complicated thoughts than you might think. And I think here in this moment, this face right here, this panel, I think this is where Rin realizes that too, that Choco isn't just a nice person, she's kind of a cool person, you know? She's more than friendly, she's more than sweet, you know, like she genuinely cares for other people. And Rin so far in the story hasn't really been like that, you know, like she's only ever thought about herself so far. If you think about it, she's only ever wanted to uh join this club so that she can make friends, but now she has another goal. Sort of. I mean, at this point she develops it. She doesn't declare it or anything, but she admires Choco, and I think she wants to be like her. You know, she wants to not only does she want friends, she wants to be a better person. So, you know, that's her secondary want here, right? You have her primary sort of selfish goal, her desire to have friends, which drives her, and then you have her secondary goal, her selfless one, her desire to be a better person to those around her. And well, you'll see in the future, but I think it's a good sort of inner conflict to give a character like this. And you know, this is like the first episode where these characters become more than just what they were in the first episode. And I do appreciate this episode for doing that. But at the same time, I've made much better ones since then. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah. Yeah. And this also works to characterize the club somewhat, because we don't know much about them. We don't know much about Oritsu or Popu or the two unnamed ones at this point. They have names, but I haven't named them in the story yet, so you'll have to wait. Yeah, so, because, like, we don't know much about them, but I think it says a lot that they're part of a club with this goal, this purpose. And, like, you know, even if some of them can be mean or cold, this kind of makes them seem more noble. You know, so whatever the characters may do in the future, just remember that they have this common goal tying them all together. And I think that makes them just a little bit more interesting. Yeah. So that's episode 4. Yeah, I'm gonna have a lot more to say about episode 5. Probably, maybe. We'll see. But episode 5 is my favorite episode for this arc. It's gonna have cool stuff in it. I'll have things to say, but I'll talk about it when we get there. For now, I'm done talking. My voice hurts. And I've said a lot about this episode, and I think I'm done saying things about it for a while. So, thanks for watching or listening. If you're just, I don't know, maybe you're like eating dinner or lunch and you just have this playing in the background. Maybe you're doing something else. Maybe you're also drawing or you're playing a video game or whatever. Just thanks for listening or watching. And yeah, stay tuned.